begin with a gripping hook. The lab door didn't just close behind me that morning, it slammed shut like a verdict. My mentor's words trailed after me, cold as winter rain. Ridiculous, useless, a dream that will burn you. The grant chair's voice echoed next, a steady, clinical pinprick. We're done with this project. You're dismissed. And when I turned toward the corridor, the smell of coffee and fear hung in the air, and so did the terrible, ordinary truth. The future I'd argued into existence would be tossed away by people who didn't even pretend to listen. That was the moment I learned the first line of the ledger. Your worth isn't measured by a label on a memo, but by what you're willing to fight for when the room turns against you. I walked out to a city that looked the same, but I was already leaving pieces of me behind, pieces I'd someday need to reclaim. The painful departures and relentless pursuit. The ride home was a long, brutal kind of quiet. I passed neighborhoods where the air tasted like smoke and old promises, the kind of places that whisper, "You're wasting your time." My family greeted me with rehearsed smiles and the same questions they'd asked 1,000 times, as if the dream could be folded back into a neat, safe box. They teased me at dinner, joked about guaranteed failure and potted plants as a life. They said I'd embarrass us all if I kept chasing this ridiculous environmental bioengineering nonsense. This idea of stealing courage from the soil to breathe life back into the air. They didn't see the map I carried in my chest, the route plotted in a language only the soil understands. But I couldn't stop. The sting of rejection hardened into a single, stubborn resolve. Prove them wrong by proving the world right. I became a ghost in the city's labyrinth, part botanist, part conjurer of green, moving through abandoned lots, under bridges, behind brick facades where wind found a way to carry life. I planted what no committee would approve and what no investor would fund. A guerrilla network of seeds, cuttings, and stubborn husks of life that refused to surrender to poison and neglect. People called me reckless. I called it rhythm, the cadence of roots finding purchase where hope had fallen quiet. They laughed, and I learned to listen to the earth's breath instead. The initial ridicule didn't just come from the public square. It came from the people who should have celebrated you, the family who named you with a sigh or a dare, and watched you drown it in soil-stained gloves and rain-soaked notebooks. My sister would text whenever I released another map of a hidden sanctuary. "When will you grow up?" Father would appear at talks, arms crossed, the clock in his eyes ticking away my minutes. They weren't just skeptical, they were convinced I was a fool with a fatal hobby. Each jab became fuel, each doubt a grain of fertilizer. The work grew teeth. Hidden sanctuaries sprouted along power lines, arterial roads, riverbeds, green lungs, expanding where the city's lungs had rusted shut. Arduous ascension and profound triumph. The city changed in fractal leaps. A rooftop forest here, a pocket wetland there, a 10-block corridor where air sensors whispered in a language of numbers I learned to love. My method, bioengineering urban plants to purify toxic air, wasn't glamorous, but it was stubbornly real. I didn't wait for governments or universities. I moved with the rhythm of the seasons, with the drumbeat of rainstorms and the quiet urgency of seeds that never stop seeking a breath. The plants grew not just in soil but in time, building microclimates that cooled heat islands, filtered particulates, transformed the city's smell from sour to almost sweet in certain hours of the day. The technology wasn't a gadget, but a chorus. Engineered canopies, biochar blankets, engineered root systems that trapped pollutants at the source. Industry titans whispered from conference stages and glossy magazines, ridicule dressed in corporate eloquence. They mocked the pipe dream, the tiny gardens, the dollar-losing experiment, but the measurable, undeniable changes could not be dismissed. Air quality dashboards that finally showed PM 2.5 levels dropping in neighborhoods that had long been the city's toxic memory. Biodiversity rebounding along corridors where birds had once feared to nest, children stepping under green bridges where the air felt different, softer. I learned, through long nights in the field and the quiet math of data, that success isn't a single trophy, but a system of small, stubborn victories, an ecosystem of proof that grows a wider truth. Healing is possible when you refuse to stop asking the right questions. In those years, I stopped asking for permission and began collecting results. The more the city breathed easier, the less my doubt mattered. People who had once dismissed me began to hear whispers of a larger story, the one where a single, stubborn botanist with a backpack full of seeds can redraw a skyline. The journey was solitary, yes, but it was also a map of resilience. And if the universe has a ledger, then mine was filling with numbers that reflected patience, courage, and the undeniable weight of faith in life's capacity to repair what humans break. Cathartic return and poetic justice. Years ripened into a harvest that could no longer be hidden. The day I returned to my hometown felt like stepping into a room where every window held a memory of words spoken in contempt. The village square still smelled faintly of pine and old corals, and the same faces wore the same lines of judgment, only sharper now, as if time had sharpened their certainty. They hadn't believed, not really. They believed the dream was a childish luxury, a fancy for those who couldn't stomach the practical world. My home welcomed me with the quiet ritual of a door that never forgets. My mother stood in the kitchen with jars of pickles and pepper that seemed to shimmer with a different color, as if the sunlight itself learned to glow when truth arrives. My father, always the stubborn farmer at heart, stood by the porch with his hands stained from years of work, a kind of weathered respect creasing his face. And then came the scene that felt like the earth speaking through us all at once. I guided them along a path behind the old barn to a hillside I'd first seeded years earlier, now a living panorama of engineered forest, of air that no longer burned the nose, of birds that finally sang in chorus over a city's noise. There, in a field I'd won from the world's disbelief, a wind-scored canopy swayed. The smell of clean air rose like a confession. I invited them to stand beneath the green expanse, the leaves catching the light, the roots underground, quiet and deliberate. And then I did something that felt almost sacramental. I released the data maps and meters and photo documentation into their hands. The numbers spoke with the same calm certainty as the birdsong. The air had improved, yes, but more than that. Life was returning to places they'd long forgotten could heal. Polluted blocks looked different, lighter. Children played under a shade that used to be a rumor of possibility, now a real, breathing fact. The room went quiet as the ledger opened its second chapter. My sister's eyes brimmed with astonishment she dared not name. My father's jaw unclenched, the sternness melting into something that looked an awful lot like pride. My mother, who'd once warned me away from the unreliable dream, whispered almost to herself, "If you mock a dream, you risk starving the world of what only that dream can give." The words landed in the room like rain on drought, a quiet rain that began to soften stubborn hearts. By nightfall, the hillside was a living ledger of what real resilience looks like. A community pointing toward a future where industry and ecology don't clash, but cooperatively breathe. The city's oxygen was thicker in the air above our town. A tangible reminder that a person's stubborn hope, once planted, can outgrow the shadows of ridicule. I didn't come home to gloat. I came home to offer a seed of mercy, The seed that says a dream that hurts no one is a dream worth letting grow. In the end, the Karma's ledger didn't punish them for their derision. It forgave them by offering them the chance to be part of the healing they once doubted.